Hello, friends. Welcome back to Creeps and Creeps. My name is Cece Delaney, and I'm joined by our friend ButtRflY. Hello.
Hi.
We're going to talk about some paranormal bullshit today that I'm very pumped about. Before we get into it, if at the end of the video you decide that you like this, please go ahead and subscribe, leave a comment, a rating, a review, all that stuff. Just happy to have you here. ButtRflY, would you like to tell us what you're all about, who you are, where we can find you, all that?
Hi, I'm ButtRflY. I make hyperpop and EDM. So if you want to find my music, you can find me pretty much anywhere music is sold. And you can find me pretty much on any social media platform, but I'm mostly on TikTok and Instagram. Come on over to my page, say what's up, check out my music, let me know what you like about it. My latest song is called You Give Me, but if you like a more dark vibe, go listen to Fly Away From Me. You'll like that one.
So, ButtRflY, have you heard of the movie The Exorcist?
Yes.
Do you know the origin story of the movie The Exorcist?
I've watched The Exorcist probably like 2 or 3 times. I know my mother told me that it was somewhat based on an actual occurrence, but I don't really know the full story.
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, you're going to learn today. So now you can go home and tell your mom everything you learned. Today, we are going to be talking about the case of Roland Doe. He also has another name. We'll get to that too. Because initially, when he was talked about, like right after the Exorcist movie came out, he was like, please don't tell everyone my name because I want to live in privacy. But now he's dead, so it's fine.
Fair game.
Yes. Today, we are going to be talking about the exorcism and haunting of Roland Doe, the character basis for Regan in The Exorcist. Which actually, fun fact, I never watched that movie.
It's so funny too because my mom was like, oh, when I first saw it, it haunted my dreams forever. Because, back then they didn't really have like good CGI and like special effects, and it was just a different time. So for them it was really scary. And I guess the girl that played the main character, she like didn't get any work outside of that movie for a long time because everyone was so scared of her. Like everyone was just terrified.
I never knew that. That's so funny. I'm actually going to call him Ronald because I wrote Ronald in all of my notes, and I'm not going to try and sit here and remember Roland versus Ronald. So this story starts in a small suburban town in Cottage City, Maryland, middle-class German American family. They were practicing evangelical Lutheran, with their son Ronald being baptized at just 6 months old. So super religious, will be important. Ronald and his family weren't really surrounded by too much like extended family other than their Aunt Harriet or Tilly, depending on the source. But Aunt Tilly was a weird bitch, and I loved that for her. She was super into like the occult and the witchy stuff that you don't do in 1959. You don't do that shit. You leave it to the witches.
Loved.
Oh yeah, and so did Ronald. He was fucking obsessed. He was all about Aunt Tilly's lifestyle. So they really bonded over their combined interest in spiritualism, and she was actually the one who introduced baby Ronald to the Ouija board. They both had this avid obsession with the occult and spiritualism and became the entire family's problem pretty quickly. For example, one day the family were all driving while they were visiting Aunt Tilly when suddenly a seatbelt in the back seat began to curl up on Ron and his mom, and they were just basically being like sucked into the seat, like they could not move. They managed to make it back to Aunt Tilly's house. When they get there, Ron's dad reaches over to turn the car off, except the key wasn't there, and he later found it under the front seat. Aunt Tilly opened Pandora's box of bullshit. By the time Ron was 14 years old,
Aunt Tilly
ended up dying at the age of 54 of multiple sclerosis. God, that is such a hard thing to say.
It's such a tongue twister.
Oh my God, of MS in January 1949. And this is just 11 days after the weird stuff started happening with Ron and his family. This is the last time they saw her, was the seatbelt incident. And it's all downhill from there.
That would freak me out. My seatbelt just started like
Yeah,
kept going and going. Oh my God, no, absolutely not. I'd become a priest, a shaman, everyone.
Cover every base. I'm not fucking around. I don't need Pazuzu in the backseat. Quickly after her death, shit just like skyrockets. Like it goes to the nth degree with Ron and his family, and he starts noticing like these scratching noises on the floor and on the bedroom walls, and he noticed that these sounds would just randomly start around 7, like for no reason, and they would go until about midnight and then they just stop. The previously sturdy pipes started randomly leaking, and he noticed that his mattress would just like suddenly move, just like jerk off to the side. Maybe don't say jerk off, never mind. It very abruptly moved, okay? He noticed that the scratching sounds, they only lasted for like 10 days. And then it stopped, but only for 3 days. And at that point, it came back with a vengeance.
Oh no.
After this 3 days of silence, it picked back up with squeaking shoes marching around Ronald's bedroom. That lasted about 6 nights. And on the 6th night, the scratching came back with the stomping, the pipes, the mattress moving. Like it's stacking. So they noticed that the sounds of the footsteps were very rhythmic, like marching soldiers.
Oh, I hate that.
And then he started noticing scratch marks on his mattress that also could be found in the morning on his body. It's okay. That was so funny. I thought that was you. I was like, okay, it's not that weird. Chill.
My dog. Here, I'll shut my door.
For a while, the family thought that it was Aunt Tilly, and they're like, oh my God, bestie, you're back. We love you. And they were chilling. They were communicating. They were like, maybe stop being so obnoxious, but we miss you, so it's okay. Ronald's mom was Aunt Tilly's sister, so she's like, oh, sissy, let's talk. So she reaches out to Aunt Tilly, and she says, quote, if you are Tilly, knock 3 times, unquote, which is followed up by 3 knocks. So then she says again, quote, if you are Tilly, tell me positively by knocking 4 times, unquote, which is followed up by another 4 knocks. So they're like, oh my God, bestie Tilly's back. She's being a little unhinged, but that's okay. But then stuff really started to pop off, and they're like, maybe it's not Aunt Tilly, maybe it's actually a demon. Oops. Ron's parents reached out to the psychiatrists at Georgetown University Hospital to come in and try and figure out like what was going on. Because at this point, Ron has scratches, and they've kind of figured out it's probably not Auntie Tilly fairly quickly when she started assaulting their child. They were like, hey, Priesty, can you come over and figure out what's going on with my son? They come over, and it didn't work. Obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be here, and this would be a really boring story. And they ended up contacting their Lutheran minister, Reverend Luther Schulze, who had Ron stay overnight in the church with him on February 17th from 9:20 specifically p.m. to 9:20 a.m. Very specific timing. Not really sure if there's like Psalm 9:20 or whatever. I don't know. It starts at 9:20, and a little boy is left alone with the priest in a church overnight. So anyway, we're gonna ski right past that.
I was like, oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. So he might have some other demons to exercise after this. So around 10 p.m., the two decided it was probably time to wrap it up and just go to bed. 10 minutes later, Ronald's bed began to vibrate violently. And when Reverend Schultz turned on the lights to look, he saw that the bed was clearly like shaking and vibrating and going nuts. Obviously, he's a reverend, so he's like, oh shit, hallowed be thy name. And he immediately starts praying, which makes everything just exorbitantly worse. In order to debunk that this was Roland, he decided that it was high time to strap Ron into a heavy armchair and hold his knees to his chest, like kind of tucked up, like crack the egg in a trampoline status. And he wrapped him in a blanket. Regardless, the chair starts to move, and it moved so forcefully that it tipped over. And as it's tipping, Ronald yells, quote, "It's over for me, Pastor," unquote.
No. I can only imagine like what the kid is seeing. Like the part where he says it's over for me, it's like, what did he see?
Ultimately, things did not work out with Reverend Schultz, and he decided that I'm tapping out, hun. I can't do this. But luckily, he came in clutch with another referral. He wrote to the parapsychology laboratory at Duke University in North Carolina in March of 1949 and explained that when Ron was in the chairs, they moved, and one threw him out of it. His bed shook whenever he was in it, unquote.
It's like a referral letter to a new specialist.
Exactly.
Like he's a doctor, just like sending it to another doctor. It's amazing.
This actually is not in my forte. So Schultz also described in his referral letter that the family's floors were, quote, scarred from the sliding of heavy furniture, unquote, and, quote, how a picture of Christ on the wall shook, unquote, whenever Ronald was nearby.
Oh my God.
The family also reached out to Lutheran ministers and a rabbi, and While the rabbi was trying to figure out what was wrong with Ron, he suddenly started to talk in an unknown dialect, which is a form of glossolalia. And after a while, the rabbi determined that he was probably speaking in Hebrew, even though Ron did not know Hebrew. To the orphanage, goodbye. So, a recording of Ron's voice was sent to a professor of Oriental languages, and his opinion was that Ron was speaking in Aramaic, which actually was the language spoken in Palestine in Jesus's time. So it kind of lines up and tracks. Just like this dead language. It's fine. So the Lutheran minister suggested that the family reach out to the Jesuits for help. And fortunately for them, they were able to send out Father Albert Hughes, the local Catholic priest, to perform an exorcism in late February of 1949. While Ronald's uncle was driving him to this little meet and greet for his baptism, he alleged that Ron suddenly glared at him from the rear view and grabs him by his throat and shouted, quote,
"You son of a bitch, you think I'm gonna be baptized, but you are going to be fooled."
unquote. No,
What
Ronald,
the
don't do that.
That would be my 13th reason.
You did
I
this
would
to me.
be out of that car so fast.
The reason they're trying to baptize him is they cannot help him because he wasn't subscribed to their religion. They needed to convert him. So what should have only been a 15-minute process took Ronald several hours because Ron couldn't get his shit together for long enough. And every time the priest recited, quote, "Do you renounce the devil and all of his works," unquote, Ronald would freak out into such rages that he had to be physically restrained. But eventually he did respond with a weak renunciation of the devil, and that was sufficient enough for the ritual. Like, he hit the bare minimum, they were good. Now we're getting to the exorcism portion of this shit. So they strapped our boy Ron to a bed while Father Hughes started his rites of exorcism, but had to stop when Ron broke off a piece of the mattress spring and stabbed the priest across his shoulders, effectively ending the exorcism in one fell swoop. Yeah, you may not stab the priest and expect him to continue to help you, Ron. I'm sorry, that just made me think. Have you seen that Vine?
Nice, Ron.
I sneezed. Oh, I'm not allowed to sneeze.
Anywho, apparently this priest was not the only one injured in the process, because on February 26th, 1949, Ron had red scratches on his body that would continue to appear for the next 4 nights. One of his little scratches on his chest formed the word Lewis, which Ron's family took for some reason as a hint that they all needed to go on an adventure to St. Louis, where one of their cousins lived.
They're just grasping at straws at this point. They're like, St. Louis? I don't know.
Like, there's really no other Lewis you could have thought to, I don't know, call before you took the adventure to St. Louis. The 1% realness. I wish I had that money to be like, ooh, family vacay.
Oh, we just gotta take on a holiday.
Right? Like, okay, wealthy, snaps, good job. The family also wasn't sure when they should leave, but it was made real clear when the word Saturday was written on the boy's hip. And when they were trying to figure out how long we should go, apparently another message was scratched on his chest that just said 3.5 weeks. He's just planning their itinerary. He's like, and then also
what?
stay at the Radisson.
Demon just wanted a vacation.
You guys are really bumming me out by trying to get rid of me. I just need some R&R.
Anywho, it should be noted that according to Ron's mother, there was really no way for him to make these scratch messages because I guess they happened while his hands were actually physically bound behind his back.
Okay.
For 3.5 weeks, we're going to travel to St. Louis with this family. They take him to see a psychiatrist just to make sure he's not doing it for attention type vibe. Turns out he's stellar. He's normal. He's good. It all checks out. The only thing they noticed is that he seemed a little high strung, but yeah, demon's trying to murder him. So I guess I would also be high strung. Everyday life makes me high strung, so I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I would not survive that. I would just black out at that point and I don't even know what happened.
The demons take over. The demon in the corner of my room's like, yes, fuck yeah, perfect. Not
I'm
you,
like,
though.
I mean,
I would fight so hard.
I would fight so crazy.
I have a reverend on speed dial, all right? Leave me alone.
I have so many crystals. So many.
So many. Apparently, he was high strung. That's where we left off. A reverend in St. Louis also recommended that the family use blessed candles and holy water and special prayers. However, when Ron's mom went home and started lighting everything, one of the candles just went flying violently through the air, as to be expected, in my opinion, but she didn't expect it. And they went so quickly through the air that they immediately extinguished. And so in another instance, there was a rocking chair that Ron was just chilling in, and it started to spin around, although it was completely obvious that he was making no effort. Like his feet were not on the ground, and so did everything that he sat on during that time. Everything just wanted to migrate around the second his butt cheeks made contact.
What?
And it was so bad that poor Ron had to drop out of school because he was just so embarrassed because his desk would like burp, burp, burp around the classroom in front of God and everyone.
It's like not subtle at all either. Like you would think that an entity would try to be more subtle, but like no.
This demon didn't give a fuck. It had things to do, and that included possessing and ruining Ron's life. He was a busy boy. So a cousin for the family was going to school at St. Louis University while Ron was going through his bullshit, and he was able to put the family in contact with Father Walter H. Holleran and Reverend William Bodern, who were both willing to perform another
exorcism
on Ronald. So this particular bout of exorcism started in early March of 1949 when the exorcist witnessed scratching on his body and noticed again that the mattress that Ron was on just began to violently shake. And they actually noticed the same thing when they sent him off to like another set of priesties just to get a common consensus in Maryland. Same thing, same story. The consensus is he's booked busy and definitely possessed. Father Bodern then tried to protect Ron by putting a crucifix on him, like valiant effort. But after Ron wore it for a little bit, he like put it under his pillow. And when the family returned to Ron's bedroom in the morning, they saw that the furniture was all flipped upside down and the crucifix was just on the edge of the mattress, and his bed without Ron in it this time was just shaking violently. The two exorcists also noticed a pattern in Ron's behavior when he was calm and like normal, just chilling in the day. But when he was ready to go to bed, he would start exhibiting strange behavior, including screaming and wild outbursts, which in my opinion kind of makes sense. Like I would also be fucking anxious to go to sleep if my stuff was constantly moving without my permission.
Yeah.
So he kind of went Matilda on their asses too and was able to make objects mysteriously fly around him whenever he would enter a like translate stint, and he would start making like really awful like guttural sounds when he saw sacred objects and would react just completely violently and erratically to it.
Because like the whole time you're telling the story, I'm thinking, oh, wouldn't it be so crazy if it wasn't like related to religion? Like if this kid just had superpowers, but no, because you're like, no, every time he saw a religious object, he started like freaking out. Like, definitely religious. Yep.
That is something I find so fascinating too. And it's something that I really want to like make a Patreon episode just talking about it. What the fuck is up with especially like Catholicism and demons? I mean, maybe it's just because those are the ones that are highly publicized, but I feel like any sort of demonic entity or anything, I have not seen a single one that wasn't part of some religious family. Like there's not just some random atheist that's getting demon possessed. You know, it's so weird, and I really want to understand the correlation. I don't get it.
You do hear about it mostly with Catholicism, though. It's like you don't hear, like you don't see a movie where they're like, these Southern Baptists you know, and you don't really hear like, oh, these Presbyterians, like they had, it's always Catholicism. It always is. Yeah, that's so true. Like, what is the link, you know?
Yeah.
This is the thing. Anything I could say about it would be speculation. Because like, one, I'm not Catholic. I was never raised Catholic. I was raised like in church, but like more like non-denominational.
Choose your own adventure style.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like you do hear about a lot of, not even just entity, you hear about a lot of really messed up stuff to the Catholic Church. And it's like, what is going on? There's definitely a lot of other churches that got a lot of messed up shit going on. But I'm just saying, like, there's definitely something to be looked into.
I'm very, very curious about it. We'll have to do an episode just specifically talking about that. And I'm hoping like everyone just comment in the comment section. Let us know what you think, because I would love to go over those theories and dissect them. And I wonder if it's something to do with like kind of like the Black-Eyed Kids, how people are like, oh, that's just kind of a group manifestation. Like they didn't exist until the 90s when some guy wrote about them, and then everyone started to think that they were real, and so it was kind of like group manifestation. So I wonder if it's something in the same vein where at one point a lot of the major Catholic leaders got hyperfixated on possession and stuff of that nature.
I cannot wait for this deep dive into that, because that's gonna be so interesting.
I'm gonna have to like go and look up a bunch of theories and be like, okay, listen. Anyway, I guess I'll focus back up. So Something that I thought was so interesting when I was doing research is that a lot of people, including myself up until this research sesh, thought that exorcisms were like, the power of Christ compels you and like you're done, you're
Yeah.
good, you're out skis. Girl, it takes so long to exorcise someone, it turns out. I had no idea.
Maybe stubborn, I guess.
Apparently, this ordeal took weeks to get his demons out. Like 3 weeks, I think it said.
Holy crap.
And over the time of this like multi-week shindig, there were multiple times that a giant X would appear on Ron's chest. I guess there was an instance where there was a pitchfork shaped pattern of red lines that went from Ron's thigh to his ankle. And this happened every single night for more than a month during this process. This poor kid.
Oh my god. That poor kid's mama.
Dude, oh god. And it's sad because like we're gonna touch a little bit on the aftermath of what went on and woof.
Yeah.
So this is another specific instance that was fodder for the movie. So on the evening of March 20th, apparently Ron had peed all over his bed and began shouting and cursing at the priest, which led to his parents' breaking point. And that's when they were like, this isn't cutting it, we're out. And they take him to Alexian's Brothers Hospital in St. Louis for more serious treatment. When we get to the Alexian Hospital, it's kind of like bam, bam, bam. Like, I guess the demons were already like worn down. So by the time they get here, it seems like April 18th was the breaking point for Ron. It was the Monday after Easter, and Ron had been woken up with seizures and yelling at the priest, saying that Satan would always be within him. And priests Walter Holleran and William Van Roo responded by laying holy relics and crucifixes and rosaries just like all on and around Ron. He was decked the fuck out in religious garb.
Oh my god.
And apparently this really pissed off Ron's demons because he took this upon himself to break Father Holleran's nose.
Ooh.
So by 10:45, the attending priest called on St. Michael to expel Satan from Ron's body. And apparently Satan said that St. Michael and himself were going to battle it out on some ethereal plane for Ron's soul. This is like the final boss showdown.
Oh my god. It's
It
like video game style. They're like
Street Fighter.
they're doing like Mortal Kombat.
Satan versus St. Michael. Finish him.
Like, not you guys fighting over me.
So apparently this final fight only took 7 fucking minutes. After all of this, it culminates in a 7-minute quickie.
Oh my god, 7 minutes. Maybe on that plane it took an eternity, but for us it was like 7 minutes.
Oh my god, 7 minutes in heaven. How fun.
Wait, the game 7 minutes of heaven? That's so funny. Why is that like God and his entities being on brand? Like, yeah, we get 7 minutes. That's the rule. He's like, St. Michael, you can't do it in 7 minutes. You're out.
So anyway, it took 7 minutes. And apparently after all of this, Ron just sits up and he goes, he's gone. That's it. I
feel
guess.
like I don't trust it. I don't.
This feels like the calm before the storm, actually.
Sounds like that's what a demon would say. That's not gone. Like, gone.
You just sit back down, okay? We're gonna test some things out with some holy water and crosses, okay? You're not leaving yet. I guess from this moment, clear sailing, we're good. Nothing else happened after this. It's literally, I'm better. That's it.
See, if it wasn't for like the accounts of, the bed shaking with his feet off the ground and all that, if it was just like him on his own, like freaking out, yelling at the priest and saying all this crazy stuff, you would almost think that he was going through like a bout of psychosis and they just had to play along. Mm-hmm. And then finally at the end he had the vision and they're like, they're like playing along, and then finally he's like, oh, it's done. And then it's like,
and they're like, yeah, for sure.
Go through the motions. But like there's the accounts of like shit moving whenever he's like straitjacket. So then you're like, oh my god, it has to be real then, right?
I don't think you can like manifest psychosis physically, but maybe.
Yeah.
And I guess everything like started from Aunt Tilly's death till the he's gone 7 minutes in heaven episode. 3 months. This entire family just suffered for 3 fucking months. And then, as if it couldn't get any worse, like, yes, sure, we're good in the like metaphysical plane. However, real people suck arguably worse than demons. So the Washington Post got their grubby little paws on this after everything became public in August of 1949. And they wrote a paper. And the article's kind of hard to go off because it really doesn't give a lot of in-depth details, but it gave enough to where if you were like in that small town, you'd be like, oh my god, it's Ron. But Like I said at the beginning, they named him Roland Doe for a while, but we know it's you, Ron Hunkeler. It wasn't until 1971 when William Peter Blatty wrote his novel The Exorcist, which was based on the unofficial account of the diaries written by Halloran and Bodern. Blatty got his little paws on those, and he decided he wanted to make a book about it. And in 1973, it was made into the movie The Exorcist, directed by William Friedkin, and was one of the highest grossing horror films of all time. Obviously, as movies do, it took several creative liberties, with the most obvious being that Ron was turned into a 12-year-old little girl named Reagan, and the movie completely neglects the timeline, which the family moved to Missouri, and instead the entire thing took place in Washington, D.C. So yeah, he was fine. Like, he went on, he got married, and he actually ended up having a son that he named Michael after St. Michael, who he credits with literally saving his life. He ended up working for NASA, which was really interesting, and he helped create the technology that ended up making the space shuttles resistant to extreme heat and contributed to the Apollo space mission in 1960. Like, the demons
Wow.
OP'd his intelligence, I think.
He went on to do great things. Wow.
But it was really sad. It's so sad as I laugh. But I guess after the movie came out, somehow word got out and he was freaking out. Like, the entire time he worked at NASA, everyone saw him as just like a normal dude. Like, they would never guess it. And then the movie comes out. It's a big movie. So everyone's like, oh my God, have you seen The Exorcist? And he's like, no. He was freaking out that people would find out that it was him. Eventually they
no.
did, which is really sad because he was like, fuck, dude, I was trying to avoid that.
Freaking doxed him.
Dude, for real. But he eventually passed away in 2020 due to a stroke just months before his 86th birthday. So he lived a long life. It was good.
Whoa, back in 2020 he passed.
Right?
Wow. It makes you wonder almost if the family just wanted a story, but like then again, how would they, sorry, I just kicked my camera. It's like, how would they benefit from that though? Because like it seems like it would only bring negative attention. So
I mean, attention's still attention. It's also like The Haunting in Connecticut or the Amityville Horror, where it's arguably fake seeming. So who knows? But you're right. It's kind of weird to call attention on yourself and be like, oh my God, I'm so haunted. But then you make so much money by selling the book and movie right.
Very true. Yeah, they would have had to give the okay to use their likeness and all that kind of stuff. Well, maybe.
Yeah, actually, considering Ron's like, don't fucking look at me. Like, I can't imagine. He was like, yes, sign me up. And technically, actually, I guess with this one, it would have been the priests that gave their rights because it was the their diary. That to me kind of lends credence that I could believe a lot of this because as far as I'm concerned, it was just the priests who had to sign off. I could be wrong.
Was it mostly the priests that were like experiencing the...
They didn't even come in until late. They came in the last friggin' half.
So a lot of the stuff was documented by the family and then later on by the priests. Okay, so yeah.
So it's like it's their shit that was on blast. So I don't know, man. Thank you so much for joining me. That was super fun. Again, if you guys haven't listened, we did another episode, a true crime episode that came out last Tuesday or like this Tuesday. So go listen to that. It's great. And again, where can everyone find you?
Go follow me on Instagram. Go follow me on TikTok. That's mostly what I'm on. And you can find my music pretty much anywhere music is sold. I go by ButtRflY. I make hyperpop and EDM. And
it's
yeah.
So good. Subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for coming. Appreciate you. So, bye.
Bye.
Stay tuned for the full You Give Me Music video.
You get me so high, you're better than drugs.